Today, we're doing an interview with Jack Askew from To Fluency and from Teaching ESL Online. How you doing today, Jack?
Very well. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. So why don't we start off by you just giving us a little bit of a background about your business and in just a couple of minutes, walk us through briefly from where you started to where you are today.
Sure. So it all kind of started after teaching in Spain for a couple of years. So my wife and I taught in Spain, firstly in Bilbao and then Valencia. And then that's when I fell in love with the English language teaching and also just languages in general. So then from there, we moved to the US and I started to give one-to-one lessons online by Skype and it was called JDA English back in the day. So I built up that site. I found out ways to get students online, to get them into a trial lesson, and then to teach them long term. And at the start, it was a lot of classified postings. Some came from the search engines, and that increased over time. And then since 2014, I have focused on my online training courses, which I've got two flagship courses, one for English language learners, that lives on To Fluency, and then one for teachers, that's Teaching ESL Online. So the transition from one-to-one teaching into online course sales happened in about 2014, and I've been focused on that ever since.
Okay, so what time frame was it when you were trying to find one-to-one online students? Like how long ago was that?
That was 2011.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I did a little bit of it while I was in Spain, but mainly when it became an actual thing, it was 2011. And I used some of my old contacts to get some momentum going. And then for me, like in the first 2 years or so, a full-time schedule was between 20 and 25 hours. That's what I was happy working at that time. And I'd say it took me about 3 or 4 months to reach that point.
Okay. So now you don't do one-to-one lessons. Now you strictly work on the online courses part of it.
Yes, some of the courses can come with consultancy or some feedback. So, for example, with the To Fluency program, people can go through the tutorials and videos and then send their recordings to me using something called SpeakPipe, and then I'll give feedback on that. And then with teachers, I work with certain teachers, sometimes on a one-to-one basis, and other times doing something similar where I'm giving feedback on stuff that people give me.
Okay. So for someone who is just starting out now, would your advice be, hey, start off doing the one-to-one lessons, or would you be more inclined to tell somebody it might be better to start off right into online courses? What do you think, given just kind of the way things are today with the internet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, I'm going to have to just say it depends because in terms of if someone wants to earn an income straight away, then the easiest way to do that is to start teaching one-to-one, where you can find a student that's willing to pay you money for a class tomorrow. Whereas if you're thinking about creating an online course, then you have to set everything up in a way so that you've got the materials, you've got all the marketing materials, and that you get enough people into that course to make it worth your while. So it could just depend. So let's say there's a teacher who has a full-time job right now or doesn't have the desire or need for cash flow. They can, in the background, or even if they're just working on this all the time, build up an audience, build up materials for an online course, and then launch it once it's ready. So yeah, it depends on the individual teacher. And I will say that if you don't have experience teaching a subject or not enough experience, then teaching one-to-one allows you to build up your materials, to really understand the common questions and problems that people have so that you can put this into a course that can help people who are similar to the ones that you've been teaching.
Sure. And I feel like with a lot of the teachers that I've talked to over time, it seems like to go from I'm a teacher to now I want to start off by making online courses, it seems like that's probably, in my opinion, a stronger learning curve in terms of learning the marketing and all the other things, the email aspect of it, the website aspect of it, the social media aspect of it. It just seems like there's a lot more that someone needs to learn rather than just saying starting off by taking the skill set that someone already has, teacher, and applying that to like an online environment. Do you think that's more or less accurate?
Yeah, I think so. And it has got easier now, and there are different options available. So, for example, a teacher can take that skill set and upload a course to Udemy, for example, where the learning process isn't as steep. Having said that, that isn't a platform where you can just build a course and people are going to come and buy it. You still have to know marketing and know how to use that platform in the right way in order to gain some momentum on there. So I'd say it is easier these days to create something and have it available for sale without getting into the technical aspect of everything. Because another option could be the way you provide very basic materials, things that, for example, like a book that you can sell for $10 and put it on something like Gumroad or Selz, SELZ, where people can easily, well, you as a teacher can easily upload this material to that platform and people can download it after they complete their purchase. But there is definitely a lot you can learn by first offering those one-to-one lessons. And again, I think it mainly comes down to the long-term goals. If there are a lot of teachers who never want to create online courses, they're really content and happy with having a specific amount of students teaching over, a week, 15 students a week, let's say. So, and I think a good exercise here is, as a teacher, to think about, all right, what are my short, medium, and long-term goals? Do I want to create a course in the long term? Do I want to teach one-to-one now? And these can change over time, because I never knew that I was going to create an online course. I didn't really know what that was when I first started teaching one-to-one. So getting started and leading into this world can lead on to other things too.
Sure, and I can appreciate that. I think a lot of Off2Class users fall in a wide range across that scale, but we certainly have a large portion of our users who say, I do this maybe on the side, I do this in addition to my job, who don't necessarily have the dream or desire to have a business or even maybe to do it full time, but just to say, I would like to make a certain amount of extra income in this certain amount of extra time without maybe giving up, all this stuff that I'm doing. So with that said, do you have any recommendations for people who are just getting started and maybe the most effective ways that they can move forward in this, whether it's in terms of getting students or getting their feet wet in teaching online?
Yeah, something that just comes to mind with this, if you're exploring this area and you don't have specific goals, obviously learning about what others are doing and learning what's involved is going to help you. But then also just creating content on a platform like Instagram, which is very simple to do, where you can create 1-minute videos, very basic, and connect with teachers. And I was talking with someone the other day or yesterday who is teaching something different. And he was asking me about how do I start building up a following on these platforms. And we talked about ways in which you can connect with others on that platform and use a platform in a way that it's meant to be used. So commenting on other people's posts, sending people messages, sharing stuff in stories. And that way it allows you to get to know other people who are doing something similar. So I feel like doing something like that, starting with Instagram, where you are creating content and helping people, answering questions. Another thing is to get something set up in a very basic way, where you have a calendar that students can book lessons with you on something like, I hate this. I hate this word, Calendly.
I knew what you were going to say.
I have mispronounced that so many times, but calendly.com. there are many other options available too.
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of them.
Yeah, where you can create a trial lesson calendar and students can get in touch with you. Or I know you've used this platform a lot, using something like italki, where you can create your own profile and you don't need to worry about creating your own website and thinking about complex marketing funnels. So you can go to where the audience already is. And that's just some ways that you can kind of dip your toes into this world and see what likes, see what sticks. And taking that initial step makes everything really real. Like teaching that first lesson online makes everything real. Because when you're reading about it, it's so abstract and there's no context to it.
Sure.
So yeah, I feel like doing something like that, getting online with Instagram, creating content, and then using a platform like italki or Calendly to create your trial lessons. And then you get some momentum, you get referrals, and then you can start looking into doing other things too.
Okay. So these are some really practical tips to get started. I've never really gotten too involved with Instagram. So that's a little bit new to me. So using Instagram to, and you mentioned create videos, because I know Instagram, right, is a lot of photos. So, but you would say like make what, 1 minute teaching videos just as a way to start getting used to being in front of a camera, creating content,
Yes.
putting yourself out there?
Yeah, and to connect with people. Any kind of business or teaching business needs to create content. And this could be posted on classified websites. It could be advertising. It could be in-depth YouTube videos. So as a teacher, you're going to have to create content in order for people to find you. And just getting used to that is a big step forward. And the reason I mention Instagram is because you are limited to the length of video by, I think it's 1 minute. Whereas you open up YouTube and there are endless possibilities. You can create an hour video, you can create a 30-second video.
Yeah.
And also the nature of Instagram is that people are posting things from their phone. So the majority of content is coming from somebody's phone. And in order to create a video on there, you just hold your thumb down on the record button and record for a minute, where you can create a lesson, and then that's live, it's living on Instagram. And then from there, you can find other teachers who are doing similar things, comment on their post, share their posts in your stories. And Instagram story is another way of producing content on Instagram, which I think they're limited to 15 seconds for videos or a photo. It's all vertical. And they live on Instagram for 24 hours. Okay. So that's just a way to, start creating content. And I feel like Instagram is a good way to do that to begin with.
So just to kind of break that down a little bit, because I totally understand what you're saying in terms of getting on Instagram will help a teacher get over this kind of block or get started, trying to generate some momentum, essentially. Take it from, I want to do this, I'm thinking about this, to, oh, now I've made an Instagram profile and now I'm teaching 1 minute videos. So how does it go from that to actually people booking lessons on a calendly.com situation where now I'm going to teach people?
Yeah. So this is where a call to action is necessary, where you're telling your students on your Instagram account to go take action. And this is where things start to get a little bit more complex and sophisticated, but you can keep it very simple too. Because there are two main things that you can tell people to do. One thing is to go book that trial lesson. So you're posting a video. At the end of the video, you say, go to my profile. There's a link to my calendar. Click the link, book a trial lesson with me. Or I have this amazing free guide for you. Go download it. You have to enter your email address to do this. And then I'm going to send you emails to help you with your learning. Part of those emails are going to be a call to action to book a trial lesson with you, or to go straight ahead and book paid lessons with you. So the simple one is that go straight to a calendar.
Mm-hmm.
The more sophisticated one, and one that makes sense for teachers building over the long term too, is to go download something for free and get on your email list. So that call to action is important. To even simplify it more, it could just be send me a message. Send me a message if you are interested in taking lessons with me, and then you respond to messages.
Okay, well, that's super practical. Would you think that on the scale of like simple list to send me a message to, a little bit one step up of, go on my profile is my Calendly link where you can book a time on my calendar to book a trial English lesson with me, versus kind of, we'll call it the most complex of the options, where go to my website, you can download my thing and exchange it for your email address, and then I'll send you some helpful English tips. So we have a pretty clear delineation of this one's the simplest one, this one's the more complicated one, this one is kind of in the middle. Do you think that in terms of effectiveness, that even though the one that's more complicated is generally going to be the most effective, and the one that's going to be the simplest is going to be the least effective, or is it not that cut and dry?
That's a really good question. I think the main difference is the most complicated version is scalable, and you can automate this. It's a really good question in the fact that, because when people are sending you messages, it depends on how you craft the message too. So if you just like, boom, buy this in the messages, then that's not going to work. As well as like actually connecting with somebody and leading up to that. And just thinking this through, the most complicated way, the email way, allows you to automate that kind of communication and to lead people through a flow of information. So you can send an email out talking about 7 tips to learn English, things that you can do. One of those tips is to take private lessons. Then in the next video, you can talk about the problem of learners not getting enough speaking practice. This is why a lot of learners aren't progressing, because they don't get the speaking practice they need. They spend hours on YouTube, but they're not actually practicing. In the third email, you have the solution, which is to get more speaking practice. Why not take a lesson with a teacher? I'm a teacher. Click this link and go from there. So in terms of the kind of flow of information and leading people up to taking action and getting people excited about that, email can really help with it. But yeah, like I said, if someone sends you a message on Instagram and you reply with a video, and you call them by their name and you actually speak to them in a real way, then the feeling they're going to get from that is really positive and strong. So in terms of effectiveness, the messages can work really well, but it's not scalable. You can't just let it run in the background. And especially if you're thinking about just getting ahead here, if we're thinking about doing other things like online sales, online courses, then you definitely want something that's going to be scalable and something that you can automate.
Okay. So if we think about it this way, then the simplest solution of, hey, send me a message, I'm here, and then we respond to messages with video in a really personal way, even if that becomes really effective, then we're spending a lot of our time doing this. Whereas the more complicated, at least to set up solution of go to my website, download my resource, that is all taken care of automatically. They'll download the resource, they'll get automatic emails, and then the emails will say, if you would like to book a trial, here's where you do it on my Calendly. So there becomes no actual effort spent between making the videos and then the appointment showing up on the calendar.
That's right. except for responding to emails. So to get real engagement, it's good to ask questions in the emails that you send, and then responding to that. It brings like a real person into the mix, because people are aware that these emails are going out automatically, and they're thinking, is this person really there? Are they really reading the emails? And then if they get a response which is personalized, then it helps the conversion rate, and it just helps you connect with your audience in a real way. Something that I've experimented with in the past is responding to emails with a voice reply and linking to that voice reply, because that brings more a more personal level to it. And again, it just helps you connect with your audience and the people who could potentially take lessons with you.
Okay. And I imagine if you have it set up in an efficient way, that could even be faster than typing replies. If you can just have it set up in a way where you're recording.
Yes, definitely. It's a lot, especially if someone asks you a number of questions or something that is a little bit more complex that you have to go into more detail. Yeah, it is quicker. I use it a lot when I'm giving people feedback on things that they send me.
Sure.
Because then I can, and also it does help the person receiving the message understand things a little bit more clearly, because you can, obviously you're introducing intonation into this, and just the way that we, perceive language is stronger when it's spoken. So I like that as a good tactic to use.
Yeah, and there's also the free Google Chrome extension called Loom, and I just realized that, and that's one where you just click the browser extension button, and it turns on your camera and records, and you can answer with video, and then as soon as you're done, it just gives you the link, and you can put that link in the email, so then you can actually do more than audio. So I hadn't thought about the audio part of it. But just hearing you talk, I remembered, there's that free extension called Loom, and that way you can take it even to another step, because I think about when learners always talk about how it's a lot harder to understand someone when you can't see them. They want to see your mouth moving, they want to see your face in addition to the intonation. So that could even be like a really easy way to respond to emails with not just audio but video too.
Yeah, I like that. I'll look into Loom. Yeah, because making it easier it's just going to help you. Like thinking about every step of this process, where you're looking at firstly finding a student to then booking a lesson with you, and all the little things that we can do to improve this whole the conversion rate. Having tools like this can help a lot. So I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah. So Jack, one interesting thing that I'm observing as we speak is there's kind of a theme that's running as we're discussing how to get more students. And the theme that I'm detecting that is emerging is it's actually responding and helping learners in a human way.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens sometimes is teachers, we can get caught up in, how do I get students to buy from me? And I want to have a website with a buy button. And if someone sends me a message, then I need to get them into a trial lesson right now. And it's interesting because a lot of the answers that you're providing to questions that I'm asking you are all centered around this theme of, well, you make helpful content on Instagram that's going to help them. When people send you a message, reply with a video, because that's going to give them a really positive feeling. And so it seems like there's this theme of saying, be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point. And a good example is I sent a voice message to somebody 3 years ago when they asked me some questions, and they bought one of my courses a month ago, and they mentioned the fact that they were so impressed with the voice message. And well, I think also when you just strip everything down, what we are doing here is helping people. And you can sometimes get on the defensive when it comes to people taking you for a ride as a teacher. So one example is, they're going to book a trial lesson with me. just to get that 20 minutes if it's free, and then I'll never see them again? Or what happens if I create my course and then people download it and share it? Or what happens if they buy the course, they take it, and then they get a refund, even though they've downloaded all the materials? And this is a common theme that I receive from teachers, is this feeling that you're always on the defensive about it. But I always say here that do what you can to limit that, and then know that it's a numbers game, that people are going to take advantage of you in various ways. Do what you feel is best in those situations, but don't let that stop you from just going out there and helping people. So, because that's what we're doing. And once you stop being so defensive about it all, and you realize that the more free stuff I put out there, the better. The more I help people, the better. And this is all going to come back in a way that might not be tangible. It might not be trackable. But in the end, it's going to come back. And just basically, it's more fun that way as well.
Okay.
I was talking about this yesterday, because people are feeling defensive and worried about things that these different ways that people could take advantage of you. And obviously, there are certain things that people do that you need to take action on. But on the whole, it's going to work out for you in the end if you just focus on helping people. And don't worry, because you put out free content, you have a good call to action. The call to action takes care of everything.
Okay. So one, it's kind of like, it's freeing. One, just saying, not being so worried about that and focus on helping people takes the focus off of, but what if people do this, and makes it so like, what, it's going to happen. I'll do what I can, but my job is to help. And two, it sounds like it can come back to you, not just in a metaphysical sense of what goes around comes around, but in a real sense, right? Like when you're saying a guy, in a couple of years will then come back and pay for something and buy a course. And the reason he cites is because he was so impressed with you doing one thing that was above and beyond to kind of reach out and to help and meet them where they were.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if at the start as well, it's working with people in that way, in a one-to-one way, makes a lot of sense, because again, it depends on the situation. But in the beginning, if you don't have teaching hours, in theory, this means that you have more time to spend on marketing. And as you progress with it, the time on marketing is going to decrease. And that's why it's good to get these automated steps in place. So in the beginning, working with people on this one-to-one basis and responding to messages, messaging people, is going to help you build some momentum. And then you can think about ways that are just going to make this easier for you. And like I say, like with an Instagram message, you can respond by video using that Loom method. You can respond to a message on Instagram which takes you 5 to 10 seconds to say something. And you can batch this. It takes you 10 minutes a day to go through all those messages. So I think it's important as well to think about, how am I going to do this long term? How much of this am I going to do long term? And we're all restricted for time, but in terms of worrying about the negative aspect of helping people, just let that go. Let it go.
Okay. All right. So I kind of want to summarize the sort of beginner advice, including the tech stack we've mentioned so far. And then I want to get your opinion on what's missing, or, if there's something that's we've left out. So if we're talking about advice for the new teacher who wants to get online students, then to kind of really breaking it down, we say, okay, you can start an Instagram profile and start teaching 1-minute videos. And then you can have a choice of telling people, message me, or they'll book a trial lesson on my calendar link, which is here, or go to my website, which is here, and get your free thing. Whichever way you choose. You're doing that. You're making 1-minute videos. You're responding to people in an authentic way. You've got Off2Class in place, and that's helping you with all of your learning materials. And so you can manage all your students. You've got Calendly, is there something obvious? What's kind of is there, as we look at this process where it is now, is there something that we haven't talked about?
I'd say at this point, also make sure you talk to somebody in your local area, a professional, to help you set up the whole like business taxes side of things, which, obviously as teachers, we can't offer any advice there, but have a little chat with somebody who is a professional and find someone good, because they're going to lead you in the right direction in terms of what you might need to do in terms of taxes and anything else. Okay, so I'd just offered that advice to go talk to somebody, but there are many ways to do this in that sense.
Sure.
So once that's in place, it kind of summarizes the easiest way to get started with it all. And you mentioned having a good system for lesson plans as well. And obviously Off2Class offers this. And a lot of teachers will come in and they'll say, I need to get all these teaching materials before I start teaching. And I always say, just teach that first lesson. Yeah. Have a conversation with your student and allow the student's input to dictate what type of materials and lesson plans you're going to use. Because the vast majority of people who want one-to-one lessons, they want speaking practice. Mm-hmm. They don't want to go through a textbook,
right?
A physical textbook. They want to practice their speaking. And as a teacher, you need to think about ways in order to supplement that conversation so that you are going through things that will help them, so that you have a plan in place when it comes to moving on with the lessons over the long term. Because if you just think, okay, I'm going to get 20 lesson plans set up, and then your first student isn't interested in that subject, they don't have those grammar issues, you could go on, but it's not going to be relevant to that student. And one of the biggest benefits of a student taking a lesson is that they can have those lessons tailored towards them, so that they're talking about things they want to talk about and working on their weaknesses. So just start teaching and let that dictate what materials you're going to use.
I think, you're speaking to an important thing. And this, of course, maybe, I don't know whether to call it a part of human nature or just a common struggle. I don't know how to label it. But it's something that we experience from the Off2Class side of things too. And that is like the analysis paralysis that is almost used as a way to focus on something else other than getting started.
Yeah. No, it can be the case, definitely.
Yeah. So like what you were saying in the beginning of our conversation of just saying, get started, don't think too much about it. Just make an Instagram account and start creating some content. And for our perspective, we see that too, because a lot of times someone new will come onto the site and they'll start asking questions, and they start asking a lot of questions before they've had any experience with it. And so it's then just like what you're saying, it's like, well, get started. The best way to learn is by doing, right? Jump in and get a little bit of momentum going. And usually in that situation, I don't know, I feel like anything that you were worried about is less scary than you thought it was going to be before you started.
Yeah. And you might teach a couple of lessons and think, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't enjoy it. It's not for me. So if you actually go through things and set up something very complex and then realize that, then, all that effort that you've put in. Now, it's important at that stage to think, okay, am I not enjoying this because of the overall idea of teaching and doing all this online marketing, or have I just had a bad experience with a student? So obviously, you need to have that in mind too. But yeah, you're going to know if it's going to be for you or not. And if it is for you, then you'll have that context and excitement about actually doing it.
Okay. Well, that's super helpful. One last question, Jack, what is the future for you? You mentioned you've got your course for teachers, You've got your course for learners. Are you going to continue maintaining these things as far as you can see, or what's happening for you kind of on your horizon looking forward?
Yeah, I've got a secret project that is in the works at the moment, but yeah, that's like working on the side. But in terms of what I have right now, I'm just going to keep going with the two brands. I enjoy both of those brands. Looking at ways to scale it in different ways and to also just connect with more people in real time. Because one of the things I got a little bit burnt out with one-to-one teaching, and when the course came along, it was such a relief because I've been teaching one-to-one lessons for about 3 years. And for me at that stage, I just felt a little bit burnt out. But now I want to have more human interaction. So I'm going to look at ways to implement that too.
Okay, fantastic. Well, as Jack has said, he does work with teachers. So if our teachers want to find out more about what you offer, where can they do that?
Teachingeslonline.com.
Okay. All right. Teachingeslonline.com. That's where you can see more from Jack, including an interview with me from about 4 years ago.
Yes, that's right. Your hair was shorter.
My hair was shorter. Yeah. Well, Jack, it's been a real pleasure having you. This has been super practical, and I think it's going to be really helpful for our teachers. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. And anyone watching, go sign up for Off2Class. It's a great resource for people.
Awesome, Jack. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.